Ten Commandments, 10 commands with which the world was created. The Almighty created the world. Everything is 10. When it comes to something that we need to go beyond the sequence of 10, we need to draw down from Arich, which is basically Keser. What level is it in Keser? What is it reflected in a person? The level of Keser is basically the level which is, in a person, it shows on the willpower of the person. The highest of the character traits is the intellect. But above the intellect, above the 10 attributes, is the idea of Keser. Keser, Ratzon, the will. And the will is something that encompasses the whole person. When a person wants to do something, there is no negotiations, there's no hesitation, there's no delays. Immediately, as soon as a person wants to walk somewhere, his feet start walking. The reason for that is because Ratzon, will, is not like the intellect that has to penetrate the mind of the person, logically make sense, and then have an effect on the emotions. But the Ratzon is something which is basically, the willpower encompasses and electrifies the person as a whole. So as soon as he wants to go somewhere, it's already in the feet. Because it does not enclose itself in any specific vessel in the body. There's no vessel in the body that can, there's no part in the body that can be a vessel for the willpower. It is something that encompasses everything together. So therefore, it is something that can have an impact on the body in a positive way. So therefore also when it comes to curing, this is basically the level from which the level with which we connect with the idea of healing. Okay, now taking out from a discourse of the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek was the third Rebbe of Chabad. He wrote in his time, according to the calculation, that he wrote every day from his 12 years old, 24 pages. In his lifetime, he wrote a calculation of 600,000 pages. So the question is, where are they? So the answer is, regrettably, a lot were burnt in the fires. A lot of them were burnt in the fires in Lubavitch, thousands of pages. What we have is a drop in the ocean, from the ocean, which is 45 volumes on the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, the Talmud, according to Hasidus, the prophets, Nevi'im, Ksuvim, Tefillah, and prayer. And this is only 45 volumes, and we're still finding more. And then he also wrote on the Talmud. Elaborated on the Talmud, he also wrote responses. So he wrote in one of his discourses, which is on Tanakh, probably it's on the verse in Jeremiah, Rifo'eni Hashem ve'irafi, cure me, and I will be cured. So the Tzemach Tzedek says, technically, how does that take place? How does that work with the attributes? He says this is through the attribute of Tiferes. Tiferes is the third attribute, which is the middle column, and that middle column goes straight up. It's like an express train. There is no limitations. All the attributes that are in the middle column, which is Das, Tiferes, and Yesod, they go straight up to Keser. And therefore they're able to draw down from that level, and from there we bring down mercy. Rachamim G'deilim, great mercy. On another occasion, the Tzemach Tzedek writes that refuah is the 8th blessing in the silent prayer. Refu'enu is the 8th blessing. What does 8 symbolize? 8 symbolize something that is higher than nature. The cycle of time is all within the framework of 7. 7 days a week, 7 years a sabbatical, 7 sabbaticals a jubilee, everything 7. Vahi bayem hashmini, comes the 8th day, that's a day out of this world. It's completely removed from the cycle of time. This is basically the idea of 8. 8 shows that a person uplifts himself higher than time and place. So the Tzemach Tzedek writes it in the Kabbalistic terms. He writes that this comes from Atika Kadisha. This comes not only from Arich, but from Atik. In Keser, in the crown, there are 2 levels. There is Arich and there is Atik. One is called Arich, and a higher level is called Atik. What is the difference between Arich and Atik? In a logical, according to Chassidus, the word Arich means long. When we say long, that means it is in contrast to something that's short. So there's a relationship. The only difference is this one is long, this one is short. Arich relates to the 10 attributes that are below Keser, but it's a longer format. The example for that is, to understand it on a deeper level, on a spiritual level, is a person could study the Jewish law. In 1.5 lines, he will get an abridged version of what the law is, what a person needs to do in a certain instance. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is called the abridged version of the code of the Jewish law. But when a person wants to know the background of the law, he will begin studying the Rambam, Maimonides, and then he'll begin studying the Tur Shulchan Aruch, which is the beginning of the Shulchan Aruch according to chapters. And on the Tur you have 2 commentaries. One is the Beis Yosef, and one is the Bach. The Beis Yosef is Rabbi Yosef Karo, and the Bach is the Bayis Chodesh. He was Rabbi Yael Sirkis. They wrote comments on the Shulchan, on the Tur. Then came Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Beis Yosef, and made his own Shulchan Aruch. So when you follow all this through, you see a completely different background. You see a flavor, you see a light, you see the whole background of what this law is based on. And then you can appreciate that 1.5 lines of the final verdict, the final law, the final halacha. So the previous Rebbe writes in a discourse that this is the difference between the 10 attributes and Arich. The 10 attributes is an abridged version. Arich is in a longer version. It's the light and flavor and life of this whole, of the 10 attributes. On the other hand, when we're talking about Atik, which is the higher level, the word Atik means netak, removed. We can't even say that it's on top of the lower world of Atzilus, of the 10 attributes, because it's completely removed. There's no relationship between them to say one is on top of the other, one is prior to the other. It's netak v'nivdal, it's completely removed and separate from the whole chain of creation. Lower chain of creation. So therefore these are basically 2 different levels. Originally, the Zohar says it comes from Arich, Ki Ani Hashem Rifecha. Then the Tzemach Tzedek says, really, on a higher level, it comes from Atik. Atik is basically completely removed from the chain of creation. And this is the potential for healing. Because this is the place where there is remedy for all the defects on a spiritual level. Okay, so now we have, as it is in the Talmud, as it is in the Zohar, as it is in the mystical sources in Chassidus, and also how it is the attribute of medicine. So it's in Keser, it's either Arich or Atik. Sometimes it's even considered Bina, because Bina has the revelation of Atik. So Bina is one of the 10 attributes. There's Chachma, Bina, Das, but Bina is a revelation of Atik. So therefore it all links back to Atik. Because Atik basically is pleasure. There's Arich, which is will, as mentioned earlier. Atik is pleasure. Pleasure is the deepest personal character trait in the person. And therefore, this is the person, how he is enjoying something. It touches the core of his soul. The Tainug of Shabbos, for example, there are also different stages. Friday night, Shabbos morning, Shabbos afternoon, towards the second part of the day. The second half of the day is a very auspicious time, a very spiritual time in the higher heavens. So therefore, when we say, for example, Gilui Atik Bibina, that means the revelation of pleasure is in Bina. Why is it in Bina? Because where does a person appreciate something? When they understand it. If they don't understand it, it's dark. They get frustrated, and they just are not interested anymore in pursuing to tackle it, to understand it. But when they do understand it, they really have the fullest pleasure. And therefore, Atik, which is pleasure, is revealed in Bina and understanding. This is just to give a logical explanation of what Gilui Atik is in Bina. Okay, now we're going to go on to auspicious times of healing. Auspicious times of healing, and maybe if there'll be time, also auspicious places of healing. Auspicious times of healing, the Talmud tells us, actually the Shulchan Aruch tells us in the code of the Jewish law, that there are people that customarily draw water every Mitzvah Shabbos. Every Shabbos, at the end of Shabbos, the conclusion of Shabbos, they draw water from any well, because the well, Miriam's well, is making her rounds, and over all the wells, and anybody that drinks from this water will be cured. And therefore it's a very auspicious time, Mitzvah Shabbos, to draw water. Other people say today you take from the sink, it's the same thing because it's all connected. But basically this is an auspicious time for drawing water. Now we have something in the Talmud. In the Talmud, Shabbos 119b, when a person drinks hot water or Mitzvah Shabbos, it is a remedy. And the Marsha, who is one of the big commentaries on the Talmud, says, because most of the cold foods and drinks are not good for sick people, so therefore drinking warm in the meal that we say farewell to the Shabbos is a refuah, it's a remedy. And there's an interesting remez in that, it's hinted in a verse. The verse says like this, Mechabesh latzveisam, that it says Mechabesh latzveisam, it's in the chapter in Tilim. In Tilim it's about 140, 45, 46, 47. 147 in Tilim. So it says, at Mechabesh is a Rosh Tevis, an acronym. Chamin b'mitzoi Shabbos melugma. Mechabesh is Memches Beishin. So the acronym is Chamin b'mitzoi Shabbos, something warm. Mitzoi Shabbos is considered a